67 or early 68 there, I met Bill English, Jeff Wilson, and Bill Paxton, and a couple of the other people there, and got to see the new system, the system that they've been building on the SDS 940, which was actually a commercial version of a computer semi-built at Berkeley, including the entire operating system and memory mapping hardware. And Bob Taylor had forced SDS to sell these, make it into a product so the rest of the ARPA community could get these machines. It was something that SDS really didn't want. They were not in the time-sharing business. And from my standpoint, it was a complete revelation, because even though it was a kind of a tradition, which I was starting to learn about, that the ARPA projects would build every piece of hardware and software, if necessary, to make a concrete version of a vision that could be tried out and demonstrated and stuff. This was the most comprehensive one that I had seen in my month or so as a grad student. And what they did was just completely staggering. So besides the computer and the operating system that had been pretty much done at Berkeley, they had solved, as best as could be done back in those days, a huge problem with displays, and that is that large screen displays, drawing lines on them, had magnetic yokes, and it was extremely difficult to control these displays, and you would wind up getting a large field of view, but an almost unreadable display. It was a terrible set of trade-offs, and they hit on the idea of using small oscilloscope type displays that were calligraphic, that could be controlled electrostatically, and then blowing up the image by clamping a high-res 875 line television camera to this display, sort of a south of the border scan conversion idea, where you had the television camera just looking at this other display that was doing things, and then the video was piped into these displays that were large enough to really look at and do things. And it was also because you could invert the video, they were able to experiment with looking at white on black versus black on white, and found that the latter was much better because the whole screen matched up to the room accommodation of light. It was much easier on the eyes. They had Herman Miller designing custom lab gadgets to hook on office chairs for running the things. They could roll around the room thinking about things and still be working. So this is not exactly a laptop, but it was kind of a laptop. And they, in the software realm, they were extremely daring, but did the right thing. They wanted to program in higher level languages, and they had a tiny 192K byte computer that was only a half a MIP and only 24-bit wide words that they wanted to run as a time-sharing system. So this is almost impossible already. And they wanted to program it in a higher level language because they knew they were going to make changes. There wasn't a higher level language to do it, but this was long before somebody had done C as an implementation type language. So they did their own called MOL, machine-oriented language, and to do that, they made the meta translator that could make languages for them, because they needed to do an assembler for the machine, and they needed to wound up doing the user interface using that system. So from my standpoint, it was like, holy shit, this is just the greatest thing. And the bulk of the software that led up to that demo was done by about 5 people. And I later found out that's about the right number. Because if you got too many more, you have to start planning and coordinating. And 5 people can sort of sit around and argue in a more or less reasonable way. So from my standpoint, one of the really interesting things about NLS, and lofty ideas are worthy of being celebrated every time we think about them, but we also have to think about the process. And I think the other thing I'd like to say about the process is that this group, and people who do things like this, are idealists who somehow want to be practical at the same time. So this is one of the great, it's like a Christian Scientist with appendicitis. It's one of those conflicts between ideals and what you really have to do. And so part of the process of this group is not just this great do everything needed for hardware and do everything needed for software, but the group constantly re-examined its goals using its own precepts and principles that they're urging on other people to try and understand where are they going right, should we do the system over, what more does it need? And my belief is it's only these kind of people who are never satisfied that can do anything interesting at all. I believe this accounts for most of what's not just boring, but retrograde from the commercial and pop culture scheme. They just don't have ideals and human interests high enough. And we can't praise them too highly. If I had more time, I would praise them still more highly. But it's my job to express just how great they were right now, and then turn the rest of the evening over to some of the people who actually did this stuff. I was just a spectator, and it was great to be a spectator, not just at the demo, but also behind the scenes, and to wind up with people like Bill English and Jeff Wilson and Bill Paxson as colleagues later on, as we kept on trying to work on personal computing and pervasive networking. Thank you very much.